Yes.
You just see that.
You should. Okay.
All right, we're going live. I'm hitting record now.
Okay, welcome everyone. This is the regular July 19th meeting of the Harpers Ferry Planning Commission. Welcome to everyone tonight. We have in attendance
Roberta, I think you're getting feedback.
maybe stay muted.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this off.
Thank you.
Leave.
Paul Mayhew is recording minutes, and I, Chris Craig, am chairing. We also have participating remotely Roberta Mead Curry, Tim Weiscarver, and Ken Dill. So welcome everyone. And I'll ask Paul to read our obligatory announcement.
Until further notice, the Corporation of Harpers Ferry governing and deliberative bodies will hold meetings and/or hearings virtually via Zoom webinar, which provides for public participation during a public comment period when applicable and posted on the agenda. Alternatively, the public may watch meetings by YouTube, video, live stream, or listen by telephone. These options comply with Open Government Meetings Act.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if everyone is okay with the agenda. I will note that the tree committee report at the bottom, we can scratch that off because we are, we have the tree action plan and we'll talk about the committee in the new business. So scratch that one off. With that change, do I hear any objections to the agenda? Okay, if not, agenda will stand as altered. And I would also like tonight to note the tragic and unfortunate passing of our member, Jim Jenkins. We were so sad to get that news. Most of us on the town council were able to attend the funeral service a couple of weeks ago. Beautiful service down at Holy Cross Abbey, just outside of Berryville. And the huge attendance that included people from various circles that Jim was in made it real apparent how many lives he touched in so many ways. I was aware of some of that from my school teaching because we shared a student at one point in time. But the service just made it real obvious how he had shared his life in so many ways. So let's have just a moment of silence in honor of Jim. Okay, thank you. Let's move right into Paul's minutes of.
Chris,
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Roberta Mead Curry. I don't have the option to raise my hand on the program, so I don't know. And then it doesn't seem like you can get my view. I don't know why the view of the attendees is not coming up. So could you do a roll call vote as we go forward? And then, as the agenda was approved, we didn't really vote on that. We just everyone probably nodded their head but we don't have an official vote. So could you do a roll call vote every time? Because if we're not seeing everybody or seeing their hand up, then we've got a problem.
Well, I believe it's permissible to, if there are no objections raised to the agenda, to let it stand as presented, but would you like a vote on it?
Okay, I just not sure we're getting everything recorded properly, that's all. If,
Their cameras are not turned on, but I can't do anything with
I'm having trouble hearing.
Air screen shows that their cameras are not turned on, but I can't do anything with that, it's on their end.
Okay.
Only because we had them all show in the past. I'm gonna suggest that it may be something on our end that's preventing that. To think that all three of them are doing something different than they've done in the past, I think would be.
There's Tim.
There's Tim.
What did you just do to show your face, Tim?
I have on I think I'm in Zoom. I have on the bottom of my screen a video camera, and I just turned that on. That's all. But
yeah, my camera appears to be on as well, so I don't understand. Let's go into Zoom settings.
Yeah.
Everything's on.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It seems to be working now for Tim. But if you
Oh, there's
Ken.
There's Ken.
Okay. So Roberta in the lower left, and also I remember on when I Zoom, it's in the upper right, a little connect to video.
There it is. Okay, it wasn't showing up before. It's showing up now. There we go.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
Nice to see everyone's faces.
Hey.
Okay, and Roberta, were you okay with that, just letting the agenda stand, or would you like a vote on that?
As long as we can see everybody now, because I think that was a problem. So if there's no objections, then I guess we can move forward, but
Okay.
we can take a roll call vote so we have everybody recording their vote, I guess.
I'm having trouble hearing.
I think we're fine to move forward.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay, let's go on then to the approval of minutes for the June 21st minutes as presented. Has everyone had a chance to look those over?
Yes.
And do I have any comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Who
Okay.
seconded? Who seconded?
Was that Roberta's second?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, please indicate with a show of hand. Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. And has everyone had a chance to look over the tree plan?
Yes.
And we just, three of us here, plus Melissa, just participated or observed the tree committee meeting, and it was passed as presented to you. So is there any discussion? We would need to pass it on to the town council or recommend its approval to the town council. So would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I'd like to make a motion that we pass that along as an approval to the town council.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Yes, I have my hand raised.
Okay, Roberta?
Yeah, so again, you're saying that the tree committee plan is the documents, the page and a half that you've submitted, which basically talks about watching tree limbs, watching trees, and removing trees. Is that what we're talking about as our tree committee plan?
Yes,
Okay,
apparently in our ordinances, they, have to approve a work plan for each year. And as I understand it from them, it has not been, that has not been done much in the past. So, this is basically just their work plan for the year.
And that's,
okay.
the work plan is also pending receiving the funding, the anticipated funding, so.
Correct.
Right, understand. So I have lots of questions, and my main question is, we're showing a lot of removal of trees. Did the tree committee present why, other than that the trees were dead or a stump?
Yeah,
Why
no,
the tree-
actually, yeah, they not only have presented that, they actually brought in Antietam Tree Service and have taken 3 tours of the town and have determined that these trees are far past maturity, pose a risk or danger to the public, and that they have prioritized these in a way that where all the work cannot be completed this year, as they will exhaust whatever available funding they end up with, having prioritized the risk that they have evaluated each of those trees presents.
Okay, and the one tree I have in question is the willow tree, I guess, is in the park. I'm looking at, my last revisit to Harper's Ferry was about a month ago, and that tree didn't look like it was a problem if I'm thinking it's the right tree. So are there any pictures associated with the tree being removed that we can look at to make
They
sure
did
we're
not-
looking at?
They did not present any photos at tonight's discussion. They did say that the tree, it was more obvious of the problems that tree is having from the back side to view it, and that it's the higher portion, that the tree is significantly past maturity, and it's the higher portion in the back that did that, and that was at Antietam's recommendation that move high on the list.
Okay, is there any way the planning commissioners can see all these arborist reports before we make a decision next time? Because we'd like to read this data, and we're not getting any data to make a reasonable decision on, other than we're relying on the tree committee. So I wouldn't mind seeing the data before we make decisions to remove trees. We've got climate change, global warming. All I see what's happening in Harper's Ferry is a lot of trees coming down, and I don't see any replanting of trees. So
Well, then you haven't watched the operation of the tree committee. There was a significant replanting, and this year they did a significant amount of maintenance on the trees that were planted over the last 18 months. And they have gone back. Matter of fact, even at tonight's meeting, they talked about some maintenance issues watering some of these newer trees. While the 2 primary people who carry the workload of that group are there, but they had 18 or 20 trees that were mulched this year, all relatively new. So there has been actually pretty significant investment in new trees over the past 18 months.
okay, so if that is in case the fact, and if this is supposed to be our work plan for 2022 to 2023, can we amend this report to add what we're replanting to replace what we're removing? So we have it documented that we're not just cutting down trees so there'll be no more trees left in Harper's Ferry, that we have a plan showing that we're replanting as well. So can that be amended to this document?
I think we could certainly ask the tree committee, and Chris, this would probably fall to you, but we could ask the tree committee to give a listing of the trees that have been planted, and they're not in direct replacement of the trees, but they're refurbishing the trees that have been removed over the years throughout the town. But they're quite spread out, actually.
Yeah, I think, it would be nice to have something in the plan about maintenance and planting. However, I think the rush on this right now is that the tree committee is going to be using this to write a grant for the removal of the big guys and the pruning and that end of thing that that the volunteers cannot do.
Are these grand trees that are being removed?
Are there what?
Grand trees, like fairly large trees, larger than 36 inches in diameter?
Yeah, well, yeah, most of the trees that are being removed are far past maturity, and that's why they pose the risk that they do.
I would really like to consider this report to be amended to show that we are replanting something, because the way I've read it tonight and looked at it and investigated the trees that are coming out, we're pulling out a lot of trees. And we're not saying that we're mitigating or replanting. And I would really like that to be stressed or shown here, because I'm a tree lover, I'm a tree hugger, and I want trees in my town, and I want to maintain our shade and earth cooling. But the way the report comes across to me tonight is that we're removing a lot of trees and not mitigating and replacing. And so I would like to make a motion to amend this report to include the mitigation and replacement. What size those trees are, the size that's being replaced, the species that's being replaced. And if I could have a second to that motion, I'd appreciate it.
Can you repeat the motion, please, Roberta? I'm sorry.
Certainly, Paul. I would like to amend the report approved tonight by the tree committee to show that there is mitigation and tree replacement for items replaced, and those trees to be identified by size and species.
We can start that.
I'll second that motion. This is Ken.
Got it.
Okay, and it looks like Tim has had his hand up too. Tim?
I object. I think we're complicating something, overly complicating it. It sounds to me like, I may be wrong, but that some people have not read the tree report or not attended the meeting, and that the planting of trees is part of the tree plan. It's in there, it's exhaustive. And adding this amendment, adding this contingency is unnecessary and just a waste of time in my life.
I'd like to say something.
Okay.
I agree. I agree with Tim, but I understand Roberta's request.
Mhm.
And what I would suggest is that we ask the tree committee to produce a document that would illustrate the tree planting process as they have the tree removal or maintenance process as two separate issues. I agree with Tim that I think if we throw more roadblocks in their way, these risks that have been told by both the professional tree service, this isn't, I love a tree, this is a professional tree service coming in and saying, these are your risk factors. Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to let the tree committee do its work, but I do think Roberta makes a good point with what is the future? What are we doing to offset some of that? We're not talking about tree replacement. We don't take down that big willow tree and plant a big willow tree. That isn't what's going to happen. But what we should do is to illustrate where we're planting, and I agree even with what we're planting, because I mean we should be using all native species, which I know they are. Mm-hmm. But I think that we should separate those two rather than tie the committee's hands to move forward with the plan that they're currently seeking funding for.
And well, I think I would have to agree with Paul there. I share your concern too, Roberta. I would like to see it stressed that there's some plan presented to plant and all. I do have a concern that if we make it an amendment to the present plan, it may put a grant proposal
At risk.
out of
Well, do they use the grant money to also buy the new trees? I mean, so that's two-fisted, right? Don't they use some of that grant money, from what I understand, to buy the new trees?
No, the grant money is basically to work with Antietam for removal and major treatment and pruning.
And I think the planting came from their budget. which
But the
they-
budget to do that, from what I understand from previous meetings, comes from a grant. So this is a separate grant altogether.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, can we, and maybe I missed it, can the tree committee come and make a presentation to the planning commission before we vote on this next time? I think they were doing that, they were making presentations to the planning commission because they are under the planning commission. And they should make a presentation to us, and we approve what they're doing before they go forward to town council. So
Well, they had their meeting just immediately prior to ours, and we were all invited to attend.
well, and I think we need time to review what they present, and we gotta have time to do that. So maybe one of the processes we move forward to for the planning commission is trying to get a process that the planning commission follows when we have to decide on things. We shouldn't decide on things in 15 minutes when it's presented. We should have time to review the documentation, so we have a reasonable time for review. Hopefully we can put that down as a future agenda item. I am not trying to put a roadblock in, so Tim, don't think I'm putting a roadblock in. Don't think anybody I'm putting a roadblock in. I just want to make sure that we are documenting our before and after. And yes, the future of Harper's Ferry. What is it gonna look like? Is it gonna look like deforestation? Or are we gonna have a beautiful city with shaded trees? That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I think Tim had his hand up, and then Ken also. Tim, go ahead.
I have a question. Isn't there's a tree plan for Harper's Ferry?
Yes.
The replanting of trees and how to do that is in that plan. They're not cutting anything down. They're always going to replant trees. I mean, I can't imagine that they wouldn't. And it's in that plan. So I don't understand the kind of concern with the obvious detail that of course they're going to replant trees. We don't need to tell them to do that. They're doing it. And the other thing is, you got to attend the meetings or read the plan.
Okay, Ken?
I think maybe what would solve this issue is really just for us to approve it with the understanding that the title would change, that it is not the tree plan for 2022, but it's the tree removal and maintenance plan. And we're anticipating that there'll be an additional plan submitted to the planning commission later that'll talk about planting specifics.
That seems reasonable.
I would support a motion to amend that title.
I didn't hear what Roberta said there.
She was recommending a motion to amend the title.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
So Roberta.
There's a motion in a second. We got to do that first, don't we?
Well, we have a couple of possibilities. We could vote on the motion that's now on the table, or if Roberta wants to amend her motion and the second approves, we could do it that way too. Roberta, would you like to revise your motion?
I will rescind my motion to amend, which talked about adding the tree mitigation with the condition that another motion is placed on the floor to change the title of what we're approving this evening or sending forward to city council.
Okay.
What's the suggested title change?
Is a title change that would Ken, what was your suggestion for a title?
It's up to the tree committee, but I would recommend something like the tree removal and maintenance plan.
That's what I thought you said, removal and maintenance.
Okay, and so, Ken, are you, you were the second, I believe, so are you approving that revision then?
Yes.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Okay, Paul, could you read the motion as it is now?
Sure. So the original motion was to amend the tree committee report to show the mitigation and tree replacement for the trees being replaced and that they be identified by size and species. And so now I believe that would just be complemented by, and that the title be changed to something to the effect of tree removal and maintenance plan. Could you hear that, Roberta?
I heard that, but the first part of it has been rescinded. Now that there's another motion on the floor to change the title, correct?
Okay, so just the title change itself is the motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So tree removal and maintenance plan.
Yes.
Okay.
2020.
But I think that there's a valid point too, that we maybe should ask, and maybe we could circulate the actual tree plan, because there are two pieces to this. So I think that there is a plan that could be shared and maybe, at least in the background, satisfy some of the questions that were presented.
Yeah. And I will mention also, I know from following the tree committee for some time now, that a lot of their planting and depends on things that are out of their control. One being that they frequently find good spots on the rights of way, and the residents near those rights of way don't want trees planted. They also sometimes are vulnerable on what they can afford for planting. So as long as we are understanding that there may of necessity be less detail in that additional document.
What we could do is get a document and then start the conversation,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to overcomplicate things, because what you'll do then is you will lose volunteers and you will not get work done. And if we can find a way to support them while asking them for information that is critical in making good decisions, that's a reasonable request. And I think one that they would welcome the opportunity to share with our commission.
I think so too. So any more discussion on the revised motion? Okay.
I just want to add a comment to what Paul just said. Yeah, I totally agree with you with what you just said, Paul. And I would just add that the forthcoming document that talks about what's intended to be planted could also be a wish list. Meaning we would like to fill this area. We don't have funding. We don't have resources. That's fine. It doesn't need to be, a plan that's fully executed.
Well, and maybe even prioritized in the same way they're doing the removal and maintenance. So I think that's a very valid point.
Okay, and Tim?
I don't think we should change the name of the plan until in any way, unless the tree committee thinks it's okay.
That's a good point. We don't want to jeopardize.
And at the last meeting, if we happen to have attended the last meeting, we could have asked them that. But, and maybe they say, oh, that's a good idea, but I don't like the idea of changing it when I think there's no need to, and without their acquiescing, and with the thing that you're looking for, the planning's obviously taking place.
How about maybe addressing or bridging some of these concerns how about rather than sending that as a recommendation to council with a change name, that we ask the tree committee for their approval to modify that. I want to be careful that we don't jeopardize funding
Right.
if they're submitting for a grant.
Right,
But I think there's good intent
Yeah.
of what is the long-term plan? What is the vision? And I think that we're doing this kind of in pieces, so the vision, the tree committee vision isn't being illustrated by this maintenance activity that needs to happen and that they're seeking monetary support for. I think that, but Tim maybe makes a good point as far as what do we submit, because if the council approves it, and if that's contrary, does that in any way jeopardize the potential for funding that they're seeking? I don't know that.
Well, I don't know either for sure, but I think possibly we could find that out before the council votes on it.
To be honest with you, if that's the case, we know what their intent is right now. We know what they've done. We know the work that they've done. If anything, maybe Tim's point is, let this go through, but let's communicate back to the tree committee what we feel we need to both share informationally, but also share the vision of what is that bigger plan? What is the totality of the plan? Whether we get that in a maintenance component and a planting component, I don't really care how we get it. But I think that there's probably not enough communication existing today as to sharing that plan out, because truly we should be sharing that out with the whole community.
Mhm.
So listening to Tim's point, again, I don't want to do anything that would jeopardize, because this is all last minute. People are going away for weeks. If I don't want to take a risk that we don't get things done, or we miss an opportunity for grant money that would compromise or jeopardize their ability to move forward with their plan. But I do want to, and I think we need to, have a more complete vision of what is the tree committee plan for the year. That's all.
Okay. Roberta?
Yes, when are they making the presentation to town council with this information?
They're not. Chris would move this forward.
Is it up to the planning commission to now take the tree committee's action plan of 2022 in a recommendation written form to the town council? Is it our responsibility? Is that the next step?
Because the tree committee is is under the authority of the planning commission, it is our duty to recommend or not recommend their plan to the town council.
Okay, so in light of all the discussion, and I agree with what everyone's saying, again, I'm not trying to put a roadblock, but I think we need to clean it up a little bit. So what if, Chris, I assume you were gonna write the recommendation to town council, is we put in the recommendation, we also recommend that the title be changed. I think in just a written form to town council saying that we feel that their title is incorrect or maybe misleading and should say this. And can that be part of our recommendation written form to town council?
I don't understand that.
So that would be another option rather than changing the name to recommend to town council to change the name, or to ask for further documentation on the planting and maintenance.
No, just that right now we're at the point where we're changing the name. Okay, we're having a discussion on changing the name only of this document. And I'm not trying to belabor this, but I'm just trying to be clear. We're trying to discuss where and why it can happen and will not delay anything. So if the next town council meeting is August something, the second week in August or second Monday in August, is that the next time the town council is getting together? And that's when we have to have our recommendation to them? And do we know when the grant is due, what the deadline is for the grant?
I'm missing a lot. I'm sorry, Roberta, I'm missing so much of what you're saying that it's, I'm kind of grabbing and guessing a lot. I'm gonna try and scoot a little closer and,
Okay, I'll scoot closer as well. What is the deadline for the grant? Do we know?
We don't know.
Okay, so the next time
I believe-
council meets
I believe
is
that,
August.
And this is going from some memory, and I'm not entirely sure that it's accurate, but I believe that the grant proposal is due in August.
Okay, so we probably, town council probably won't meet before the grant is due, if that's the case. Anyway, what we really, know, we
There's
could-
gonna be, I know there's gonna be a special meeting by the end of July.
Some of the challenges there, Roberta, are Christy and Robert, who play a very critical role in the tree committee, are leaving tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock, and they will be gone for over 2 weeks. Chris is going to be gone for a significant period of time in this same window. So there's enough players that are going to be out of the mix that I think the date is potentially in jeopardy.
okay, well, I'd like to, can I resend the motion and redo a motion? Because I think,
If
with
the
those
second-
things-
If Ken will rescind his second as well.
I'd like to rescind the motion that's on the table. And I'm gonna make a new motion.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
May I say, speak?
Do we need to vote at all? Do we need to vote at all on anything that's on the floor at this time?
No, everything's been rescinded that's on the floor at this point.
Okay, I'd like to make a new motion to have the planning commission add in their recommendation to town council to recommend that the name of the tree committee action plan for 2022, we recommend that the title be changed to the tree committee's maintenance plan for 2022.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
This is Ken, I'll second.
Okay. And Tim has had his hand up for a while. Tim?
And Roberta mentioned acting quickly. Well, in my opinion, that's exactly what we're doing. We should not be recommending changing anything until we speak to the tree committee. We're all in agreement that we should send this thing forward, because there's no reason not to, but they are our committee, they're our experts, and I don't want to be deciding what they should name things. They may have a very good reason for not naming it what you want to call it. And they're doing what you're asking. They're removing and planning. We know they're doing that. It's not like they're not doing it. It's a matter of terminology. And I don't think we should be changing the name of that until we speak to them.
Kim, this is Paul. The revision that's being suggested by Roberta is not, we are not changing. We would be sending that as a recommendation for.
Right. I think we shouldn't even do that until we hear from what the tree committee thinks.
We won't hear from the tree committee, in my opinion, for several weeks as they are
Right.
going on.
But that's okay. It's just a name. That's all right. It's not important. The document's going to go forward. All we're talking about is a name, nothing more. And since the tree committee is I don't think we should recommend anything about that name until we meet with the tree committee the next time, whether it's a month or, there's no rush to do that. There's no rush.
Okay, Ken?
Yes, I just want to make an observation. I'm not going to make a motion related to this, but Tim made a good point a few minutes ago about us, making sure that we looked at the existing tree plan. So I pulled up the one that's on the Harpers Ferry website right now, and it's from 2013. Apparently, I thought we had approved an update since then.
We
But
have.
Okay. I'm just looking at the one that's posted on page 5. There's a numbered list of 10 trees that are considered landmark trees as of the end of 2012. And one of them seems to be a match for one of the trees that's going to be removed.
10 years later, that's probably not a surprise.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I
Just
don't
not-
disagree, Ken, that we're, the same ones that have that, tremendous stature are the same ones that are at or past maturity, and 10 years can be a long time.
Right.
But it would make sense to me that that's probably true. And it would make sense that that be updated, because that's a awful long gap before something's been updated.
It has been updated, and I made copies of the most recent tree plan for everybody in the committee. And I'm not sure what exactly the date is, but I know it's not 2012. I know it's much that we approved it on the planning commission, the updated version of it. Why that's not on the town website, I'm not sure, but I know we did that.
Yeah, I suspect, Tim, that that's the same issue as why our minutes are not on that.
Right.
Very well could be. So how do we, I'm sorry,
We need to time box this conversation.
yes.
So right now, we've decided to potentially change the name of a tree action plan to a tree maintenance plan
Or to recommend.
to recommend that.
Recommend that.
So we either need to move forward with that simple recommendation.
Yeah, can we take a vote on that? Is there any more urgent discussion before we take a vote on that? Okay, so again, the vote would be for us to recommend to town council to change the name from a tree plan to a maintenance plan.
But we would be sending it with our approval with that recommendation.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that correct, Roberta and Ken?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So all in favor of that motion, please indicate by a raise of hand or an aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed?
No,
Okay, and I think I'll vote no too. So that carries. So I will make that recommendation as passed, Roberta and everyone.
Okay.
Okay. On the membership vacancy, really nothing that we can do tonight other than to, we're all aware that we do have a vacancy. If you know of folks who would be interested and willing to work, you might talk to them. They would just need to send a resume, a brief resume, and a letter of interest to the town council and to the mayor, and then a decision will be made on that. Roberta?
Yes, thank you, Chris. And I want to follow up Jim's good deeds. He served on many committees. So with that, I know he was on the Ordinance Review Committee. I know he was on the Parks Committee. I know he was on the Tree Committee. So these are other seats and responsibilities we have to fill. And if you guys know of any other committee he was on, was quite active, and it's a great loss to us. I know. So we have to also think about of us left, who wants to fill those shoes on those other committees that Jim was serving. And so we need to talk about that as well.
Okay. Yeah, there are a number of vacancies that have already been announced and more on the way. So your point is well taken. Let's go on to the old business and to talk about the flow charts. And I hope everyone was able to get copies of the 2 versions of flow charts that I sent out. Roberta and Ken were very diligent and came out with a good draft of a flow chart. I know that they thought of some things that I did not think of. I think their practice of putting the relevant ordinances into the flow chart is a good idea. They also brought up some of the things that we will have to think in the future about, things like the plat approval, land disturbance, several of those things that come up very, very seldom, but that it would be good to have those in the plan. And so I want to thank you two for doing that. Now, then I also sent 3 pages out, I believe, that Verlissa had typed up based upon my octopus, what I call my octopus flow chart that I presented last month. And she did a wonderful job breaking that down. So has everyone had a chance to look those over? And do you have any general comments or feelings about things?
I have, the only one I have is I think that sharing it with those that would be using this, the ones that really are instrumental in moving these things through, getting their opinion on how they see this working, I think is a critical step in this process.
Meaning the BZA,
Kevin Hamilton.
Historic Landmarks.
Yep.
And us, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. And that generally is the plan. My original intention was for us to approve something and send it on to all of those bodies. But it would also be an option for us to send both options.
I think if we sent them, at least we could get those that are really going to use this, those that are going to make this a living document. If we could put this in their hands in advance, I think it would be a more efficient process to come to a final decision as to what works for those that actually make it work. That's all.
To show both
Yeah.
versions then.
Yes.
And I will mention also, Verlissa is still working on 2 of the sheets. The general permit process for the usual stuff.
Yeah, the big one was almost all of the categories, and then the other one was the repairs and maintenance.
Repairs and maintenance, right?
And they've been typed up, and Debbie's been looking at them to kind of go through, because Debbie's really good about thinking about questions of,
She is.
if I'm looking at this, what's missing?
Mhm.
So she's been kind of breaking things down a little bit and helping me with that. And to give her credit, she came up with that first sheet that's the same for everybody. And then it breaks it down by category. So she's got the last two, looking at those to make notes on, and then I can get those all out to you all hopefully tomorrow. So you can see those two, and our idea is also, because we know about the other one, is if there's things that are in that one that can be moved into the one we're doing, kind of combine the two, that's an option also.
Okay.
And I think you're right, and, you know, I think you want to keep the working group of this small enough that you can actually move forward. I mean, you look at the struggles we have moving something forward. Let's get the right people at the table. You would be one.
Mhm.
And let's get, so somebody from the BZA, I think Debbie would be a good one to be on there. I think that there's, Kevin would be, you know, I mean, get the group there that's going to make this live in this environment. And keep it as small as you possibly can and come up with a path. That would be my suggestion.
So letting the chairs of, and the OCO and maybe a representative from town staff.
Yes, absolutely, represented from town staff.
Okay, and Tim has had his hand up for a while. Tim?
Thank you for doing that. That was a lot of work. I agree with what everybody has said. I just caught my eye that on one of them, the title is The Altercation of Public Property. So if whoever's, and there's some other typos. So I think for the final, whatever the final thing is, a good, a careful
We've
reading.
been proofreading it.
Sometimes things get stirred up enough in town that altercation might be the right word. But
I thought that was interesting. Yeah, so nothing, but that was a great job you guys did.
I have red marks all over my copy.
okay. Is that it, Tim?
Pardon?
Was that all you have then?
Yes.
Okay, and Ken?
Yeah, I agree with everything Tim just said, including about the altercation. I saw that and I thought it was funny and I like it. And I think it shows we have a sense of humor. So if that typo stays in, I won't complain. And I agree with what Paul said about you having a task force to sort of move this forward. My thought is that the Planning Commission maybe can give some guidance or structure to that, because we've got a few samples here of styles. I like Verlissa's format. It's very clear, easy to walk through. If you look at the one that Roberta and I put together, the first page was my idea of having, you know, what are called swim lanes. So if you're on a particular committee, you can look across and see what things you touch. And if you're trying to follow a certain process, you can look down that column and see what the flow is going to be. But obviously that first page turned into an eye chart with too much detail. So I was thinking that the, you know, subsequent pages would essentially be what at the level that Verlissa had put together, be easy to follow. The middle ground that I think is missing is a pointer to the specific ordinance numbers that are relative to the question being asked. But beyond that, I think we're on the right path. The question is, you know, what do we want to end up with and who's the audience?
Yeah, and again, I really appreciate everyone's work on these. Roberta, you have a comment then?
Yes, I'm going to add to Ken's comments, and kind of what we did to formulate our flow of the chart is really reading and dialing down in what the code says. So really what kind of started us on the overview page or the intake page and moving through to each type of permit was really what each code section said and how it started and how it said who was responsible. And so that's kind of how we've set up the charts and the flow. It actually was really reading the code and going through the steps. Well, what did the code say next we do? What did the code say next we do? And that's kind of how the flow charts are working. And our intake page is almost the first step on Verlissa's page, where it says the OCO does something. Well, before the OCO does something, it's the intake page. So it's a good combination, and I think we could tie all of these documents together and break them down like, we say is it's gotta be the end user that has to understand this. And some of the stuff that flows back into a loop, well, what happens when it's not approved? What happens? And we really don't know. And then what happens when the OCO does issue the permit? We need to know what happens there. So I think also one of Chris's comments back to us was we don't want this to turn into a checklist. We wanted it to be the process. So if it's really what the OCO needs to do or staff needs to do after they receive the permit, then it's really maybe a set of checklists that have to be done separate from the work process flow. And so there might be two sets of documents that ultimately need to be prepared.
Yeah, I did think, Roberta, that your and Ken's ideas might be useful for the OCO to take and use some of those in his own work. You know, likewise for BZA, for us at times. But what I think what I had originally envisioned was more the big picture, talking about when does something go to the BZA, when does something go to the to HLC, when is it proper for the OCO to make the decision? And those are the kind of things that have been you know, at times hard to come to agreement in town with. So that was the level of the picture that I was envisioning. But I think it's all worthwhile looking at. So where do we go from here? Do you like Paul's idea of sending both to initially to BZA, HLC, and town staff, and let them take a look, and then we could have the chairs of the committees get together and finalize some things?
If I can answer that, I think, yes, I think we don't have everything done. These are definitely drafts. And we don't have all the types of permits, process flows charted. We don't have all the avenues of what something's going to go, yes or no, and how it's all going to flow. These are just initial stabs at this. And I think it would be great to get into a room with everybody and we all chart it out and or talk about it. And, you know, I think that would be great.
Yeah, and I know Ken had expressed the concern, make sure we're on the right track before I spend more time on the graphics and the nitty gritty. At least that's what I was understanding you to say, correct, Ken?
Yeah, that's right. Similar to what I was saying a few minutes ago. Let's touch base with the players and see if we're on the right track. You know, which of these formats do you like? You know, where is there too much detail? Where is there not enough detail? Let's just check in with people and then move forward with making sure everything's fully accurate and we cover all the details.
And Tim?
Yeah, I agree with Roberta and Ken on that. I think if you could get everybody in the same room, once you've got the chart there, and I think Ken's right, you should put in the ordinance number, and then see what they say, because they're going to be recipients of some of those recommendations.
Okay. Well, if there is general agreement on that, and we can certainly pass a motion to this effect if we need to, but I would suggest that since Berlissa and Deb are almost done with the other two sheets, that they get those to us And then, and Roberta and Ken, if you have any cleaning up or anything else you want to do prior to this, you could do that. And then when I get back from my trip at the beginning of August, I would send those off to the chairs and the staff concerned and have them take them to their groups first. And then maybe town council will want to decide, whether it's the chairs resume to make the final decision or what steps to take from there. Does that sound acceptable to everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Sounds good to me.
Okay. And is everyone comfortable in just that being a work plan without a motion?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Let's do that, and Paul will get that in our minutes as well then. Now, thank you all for your help and work on that. Okay, a few other things here, just reports. I think I hope everyone got the report. Storm DiCostanzo actually did this summary of the sign task force that was formed by town council. Part of that, as you saw, was to address the specific needs over on Putnam Street that we heard a couple months ago. And but it went a bit beyond that because of some other concerns that have come up, mainly just about tourists not knowing where they're going. And then as we walked around and looked at signs, there were other things that came up. So I think Storm did a very good job of summarizing those. I will mention there was one pretty significant thing that was not in this report. We had made the recommendation that the folks on that block, if they are all in agreement, are offered the options on a neighborhood watch plan and with possible signage. And I know Pat Morse has done quite a bit of research on that, and I think she's going to be talking to the Segazis very soon about that. So that, consider that an addition that did not get in Storm's report. But do you have any questions or any comments on what you saw there?
Good.
No, just thanks for putting that together. It looks like a pretty good comprehensive start.
Okay.
So thank you.
Roberta?
Yes, I thought it was very well done, and I think you covered most of the issues, and I'm sure the Segazis will appreciate the effort that was being made. Definitely a critical issue for them in that neighborhood. But I also would like to add, I see that there's some long-range planning going on there. I think that's great. Some long-range suggestions. So I would definitely like to make the recommendation that anything that comes out of this long range and even short range be added to the update to the comprehensive plan. So any of these items that will be recommendations for short range or long range planning, that we as the planning commission absorb those into the update to the comprehensive plan.
Good point. Yeah, we'll make sure that that's a consideration as we move forward on that. Okay, then the next thing is comprehensive plan update status. Basically, that is, there is a budget revision for fiscal year 2023, which by the way just started this month. It's July through June. And so they are considering the proposal that WVU Legal Clinic has sent us And I did ask Paul and Roberta to come up with some comparative figures as possible. This was a very rushed assignment, and I gave them leeway on, what they could come up with in that amount of time. Roberta, I don't think I CC'd you. I think you saw one of Paul's emails on that, but he did provide a dollar amount that, what's the town?
Town of Schroeppel.
Okay, in New York. And was that the town that you had been on the planning commission?
That one, and then the next one I'm still waiting on, but yes, that was, yeah.
Okay, so he's gonna have at least one figure that I've already sent to the Budget and Finance Committee, plus the mayor, because the mayor's keeping a good eye on this too. And Roberta, have you managed to collect anything yet, or do you have anything?
Yes, and I appreciate that. I did not see Paul's response, but and I think Paul and I both gave a roundabout figure of 100,000 to 150,000, and I've talked to several cities in and around Jefferson County and across the water in Maryland and Loudoun County, and a lot of those municipalities did it in-house. So there was no fee. It was all staff. They had a large enough staff to do that. But I did contact Martinsburg, and they actually did hire a consultant. They did hire Berkeley Group, the Berkeley Group, and they actually paid close to $100,000 for their comprehensive plan assistance with them. And that was a 3-year process to get their comprehensive plan up to date. So just to know a timetable, but all the other places I've contacted, Shepherdtown, Rockville, Charlestown, Loudoun County, Frederick, Maryland, a lot of them have all done it in-house. So there is nothing to go by, in that regard. But I do have, so in that regard, as far as, and I did call some other companies. I called Clarion. I called GAI Consultants, which I'm familiar with in Florida, but they also have offices throughout the country. I called ERP PC, which is a very interesting group. They're out of Pennsylvania, but have not heard anything. Again, we had a 3 to 4 day deadline to get something back to you. And I just have not heard from any of them, other than Martinsburg was the only one who actually called me back. So
I really appreciate all that running you've done, Roberta. It sounds like an amazing amount of calling and work that you've done. I'm going to ask both of you to do this, because I'm leaving very early tomorrow for 2 weeks. If you can get anything that you've collected other than the one that you already sent me, Paul, because I've already forwarded that to not the draft, but the figure to Budget and Finance. If you could send any additional numbers that you get to the Budget and Finance Committee, and that would be Deb Kelly, our finance officer. It would be Storm DiCostanzo, Laurel Drake, and Christian Pechiconis. And please CC the mayor as well, Greg Vaughn. And Melissa, I had in mind the 25th was when Budget and Finance was going to be meeting. Does that sound right?
It is around that time, yeah.
So if you could, whatever you have by the 25th, if you can maybe make your deadline the 24th. Again, whatever you have, and I think that'll be helpful for them.
If I find out the dates different, I'll email you all.
Okay, I don't know if you heard that, but Melissa said she would email you if that date changes.
Okay.
Okay.
And I will see, because I guess too, I talked to my friend for the one that I sent you, and there is a final draft out, so he's hoping to be able to get that to me, which I will forward on with but his cost was absolutely accurate because he's on that committee.
Yeah, and I don't know that they're gonna want to look at other towns' actual plans, but, you know, it might be helpful for them to know, you know, how many pages and.
Well, I think that when you look at different plans, and I think that as you look at self-done plans versus professionally prepared plans, and not that self-done plans for a community are a bad thing, they tend to look at a much smaller, they don't get global about their look. And comprehensive plans, as we look at climate change and other factors, I think when they're self-done plans, it's unlikely that some of those global aspects get considered. So we'll see.
Okay,
But I think anything we can share, if nothing else, it's information, so.
yeah, certainly. Okay, any other questions or comments on that? Okay, Paul, do you have a report on stormwater? Anything new on there?
We have not had another meeting, and
No meetings yet.
Storm sent me, Storm DeCasano sent me a note that he has been in touch with them, and we're expecting to hear back with a date for a new meeting. So
Okay,
I will, as soon as I get that, and I won't wait for a meeting, I will share that with you, and you can share that as you see appropriate as soon as I hear it, so.
okay. Are there any other, is there any other new business or anything else anyone would like to mention or bring up? Roberta?
Yes, and I kind of wanted it to be part of the comprehensive plan committee report, but I prepared a timeline and for if we get this moving forward, and I will send it to all of you, but it kind of shocked me as to where we were. So really quickly, if I go through the West Virginia code and I look at what has to be done as far as when we have to submit something for approval and have public meetings and everything like that, we have to have our first public meeting for this comprehensive plan update probably on or about September 18th of 2022, which puts town council approving by ordinance the updated comprehensive plan for 2023 by August 7th, 2023, meeting our deadline of our 10 years of August 30th, 2023. So we're really under the gun with this time, and we're running out of time. And if we take the month of August and have a bunch of workshops and planning meetings with us ourselves and try to get this started, we might be able to have a first meeting September 18th, 2022. So it also, when I calculated it, on February 6th, 2023 is when the Planning Commission has to deliver the draft to town council. That means we have to have all our stuff done, our consultant decided, all our public meetings, our drawings, our graphics, everything, if we're going to do a full-blown update. So my suggestion is, I would like to put forward for August's agenda is to have a discussion on this proposed timeline. And I would like to make that an agenda request for, and I'll put it in properly, of course. But I think it's time we talk about this, because if we're looking at a consultant and doing our 2023 budget, we need to have a timeline that's realistic. And if our comprehensive plan is only going to maybe be a short update versus a major update, then that's what I think we're at the point we need to decide is, in order to meet that August 30th, 2023 deadline, we might have to do a very brief update to the comprehensive plan. And so maybe we need to start talking about that. That's all.
I have talked to, the county planner, about schedule. I also might mention that I got, a little, well, kind of a timeline from WVU. And, it would go beyond the August deadline. I talked to the county planner about, how big of a problem is that? She felt that the worst that could happen would be that a citizen unhappy with us moving, or behind on that deadline would sue us. She felt that a court would consider that the process is in process. And, that it would probably be dismissed.
And wouldn't is the state mandate, it's not a county mandate, it's the state mandate.
Yeah, I don't know how firmly that, the state would enforce that, knowing that we're in process. I guess we can investigate that some more, but,
And I'll email my timeline, so you see it.
yeah. What I will want to do, and probably this is not gonna get done until I get back, from my trip, but, I just received that, kind of a scope and sequence with a, timeline at the request of Budget and Finance Committee. And I'll forward that to you from WVU so you can see what they're looking at. You're right, it is a pretty involved process, and we do have a lot of work to do. But I think, all we can do is maybe think about the best preparation we can do with, if Budget and Finance makes this decision and the town council makes the decision on WVU, with their advice and with our own ideas to do as much preparation to move things along when that comes forward. So yeah, your point's well taken. Maybe the deadline, from what I'm hearing and talking with people about, less important than that we're working on a good plan that is going to really help the town and provide good guidance.
That makes sense.
So. Anyone else? Any other concerns, comments tonight? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Okay,
Second.
second. All in favor, hands up or aye?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all. Great to see you. And I will be gone until August 3rd. And so you can send emails, but don't be surprised if I don't answer you. Okay.
That's a regular basis for me now.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Hey, Chris,
Uh-huh.
I was just thinking about that for just a second about that motion that went forward there. Because I voted against it, but there wasn't a possibility of voting for just the thing to go forward. So
It wasn't a motion.
I guess that's what I thought I was voting on, that against the recommendation, not against it going forward.
Yeah, understood.
So,
Kim.
but the vote that I had would reflect, I don't think would reflect that.
It's true.
Because there wasn't an I mean, it's moot, but there wasn't an opportunity to vote on just the thing going, just the addition of the words.
Yeah, understood, and I'm in the same boat with you because I voted with you on that. How about if we ask Paul to include in the minutes that our intent was not to recommend a rejection by town council of the plan.
Yeah, I mean, we want the plan to go forward. We just, period, so if that were the vote, that's what we would have voted for, but it was conflated with the caveat of the
So is that
restriction.
okay with you if we include that in the minutes, clarifying that?
Yeah, that'd be great. Sorry, Paul, for the extra word. but
All good, got it. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you, Tim.
Yeah,
Okay. Good night, Tim.
good night.
Thank you.